불멸의 전사 2.
In the highest level team league in the world, we have the two best teams, SKT versus KT, battling it out tonight. I am Wolf, with me is GTR, and it's time for the Telecom Wars.
Most historic rivalry in Korean esports is, of course, KT Rolstar versus SK Telecom T1. These teams have played so many times in Pro League finals, in LCK finals, and here today they are playing against each other here at the Nexon Arena. And looking at the lineups, this is probably the best Telecom War we've had so far for a long time.
It's one of the best we've had. I mean, I feel like it really even rivals the finals that these two teams had 2 seasons ago. A really solid lineup coming to the table for both teams, and I feel like for KT, they're taking this one very seriously. I feel like a lot of people are starting to think, myself included, that Jin Air has kind of passed them in a way here in Starcraft 2. Jin Air's been more consistent than them. They're placing higher in some of the individual leagues as well, and it's time for KT to prove that once and for all they can beat SK2, who's been on a roll for such a long time. And I think a loss here wouldn't be terrible for them, but a win would be so great.
For sure. You look at the standings right now, Jin Air is in that second place, and ever since losing Life and Flash, they haven't been really in that form that has won the championships in the past. Look, you've got players like Zest and TY who always usually take wins, but then you've got Stats, and the question is, who's their next best player?
Yeah, who's the replacement, right? We're looking at Lerilak and Lucera. Yeah. Those are the 2 players that are trying to fill the gap right now. But it's big shoes to fill. Lucera actually falling out of the GSL, losing to Deer there in the round of 8. Lerilak hasn't played in an individual league in my recent memory. Like, I can't even think of a time. These 2 players are just not standing up.
And it seems like they do have players like Jukji, like Speed, but it seems that Coach HOT Forever, it hasn't been very confident in their play so far in the practice house, most likely, so that's why we haven't seen him so far. But no surprise with the lineup that they send out. They send out the best 4 players, basically.
I think Jin Air is so stacked right now. Looking at our individual winners rankings,
Maru's like crazy.
8-0. And you can see that SKT spreads their wins around a little bit more. They've got Sue, Innovation, Dark up here all at 6 wins. Rogue down there at 5, 1 win away of jumping up with everybody else tying for 3rd. As there are a lot of players actually with 6 wins, but I feel like people are really underestimating Jin Air Green Wings roster. They have been for a long time, and I think it's important for SKT if they're going to win today to try to get as many indicator points as possible if they want to secure first place, because Jin Air, is on a huge roll right now, and SKT had to go to the ace match versus MVP.
It feels like with Jin Air, as we see the lineups here, you can look at them right now. With Jin Air, it seems their lineup is so solid because it feels like all their players are in Code S or were in Code S or the SSL, and there's so much depth to that team, it's crazy. And then they recently added Hyun to the lineup, and even though he might not be in the form that they want him to be, he's still a very good player, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the next couple of weeks for Jin Air.
Well, taking a look at this lineup, we won't have too much time to talk about it, but I feel like when you look at even Lerilak, who's arguably the weaker player on KT's lineup, at least he gets his EVZ versus Sue, who hasn't been looking in form. So this looks like a lineup where, like, KT can do this. Like, they can beat SKT tonight. If they get a few good early wins, they absolutely can take it. It's going to be a tough one, but I think, securing that final matchup and having Lerilak win it is their best chance of either winning it or going to the ace match.
Yeah, I predicted personally that this would go to an ace match, but considering the format of Pro League, anything can happen, and just as you saw before there with the events that we have here, basically, if you come down to the studio, get one of those raffle tickets, you can actually get a signed autograph, or photo card rather, of one of the players. So I believe it was Seed, Maru, and I don't know who that last player was.
I think it might be Rogue, I can't remember. I know that Trap is also a player they're giving away right now. Taking a look at this first matchup, the big story here is not Zest, who's actually the big favorite to win the GSL. It's Classic. He's only played it 2 times in 2016. Zest is 8-2. He's at the top of the winners ranking with Maru. Classic fell out of Star League early. He was having big problems in the PvZ matchup, and because there were so many Zergs playing in Pro League, he's been not fielded. He's not been fielded at all in round 2. This is his first time. It's his 3rd time this season. That is crazy. That's insane. Nobody knows what this guy's form is right now. Nobody knows how good he is.
Especially when he got eliminated by Patience in the SSL, it seems that I Love OV and Classic didn't really have the confidence to put out Classic in Pro League, but we see here with the predictions, actually everyone predicting Zest, so we all feel the same way about this matchup.
Yeah, that we do. 7-0, Zest the big favorite here. Can Classic upset? That's what we're here to find out. We're going to jump into this first game right here, right now. The Telecom Wars at the SPL Pro League. looks like the players are ready, and we're going to jump into the map right now. Let's do this. Up here in the top right for KT Rolster, their Protoss, it is Zest. The big favorite to win the GSL coming up soon. And his opponent to the bottom left, we haven't seen him this round, it is Classic. Repping SKT. One of the big Protosses for SKT for a long time, and after Harding left the team with a somewhat controversial issue with his contract, I feel like Classic really held the Protoss lineup together. Like, he was the Protoss force you could use on good Protoss maps, and really kept that depth alive. Whereas some teams have a weak Zerg lineup, for example, like KT. Some teams have a weak Terran lineup, and I feel like without Classic, SKT would have had a weak Protoss lineup for a long time. Yeah. But he kept them together.
Well, when we think about it, the Protoss players on SKT, who do we have? We have Classic, and we have, what was it, Zone? Zone?
Yeah, Zone.
Yeah, and that's about it. So Classic is a very pivotal player for the team because he's their only good Protoss. But as I mentioned before, losing to Patience in the SSL kind of shattered his confidence quite a bit. But now we see him come back here in Pro League, and what an important game to come back on against Zest, who's arguably, along with probably TY, is the best player in the world so far.
Yeah. Keep in mind, we are cross spawns here on Lerilak. I suppose Billowy is on SKT, but it's almost like a forgotten fact at this point because he just has not been fielded.
Didn't he transfer back to Frico, or is he still on?
I think he's still on SKT.
Because I haven't seen him on with the team. I think he might be on Frico. So.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what team he's on, but I know he was on SKT for a while. And you know, just talking about history, right? But just did not make the impact that Classic did. And I'm really hoping for Classic fans and for SKT fans he can show a good game tonight, because just looking at his track record in 2016, it's been probably his weakest year after a very dominant year last year. He won a GSL and a Star League. So, you know, a really important match here for Classic. And I feel like the depth of the roster of SKT as a whole.
Well, we'll just have to see how Classic approaches this, because you have to remember Zest is still in GSL. So no doubt his practice regiment will be focused on that GSL matchup this coming week. So we'll just have to see how Classic deals with this game, especially considering the form of Zest.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this build here for Classic. He's actually skipped his Mothership Core, and it's a SKT fan. He's going for a faster Stargate, and is going for Adepts. So his Adepts are actually going to arrive at the Watchtower first, so he should be able to control this fight, although he has been spotted by Zest. So Zest can't enter this zone anymore. He's going to have to back off and try to catch these Shades. And because of the probe, actually, gets the first shot.
Yeah, skipping that Mothership Core to get that Stargate earlier than his opponent is a very greedy move, I guess, because he wants to get that Oracle out to maximize the damage. Well, Oracle or the Phoenix, whatever he is feeling all right so far. And actually, notice here, I saw this, I believe it was Deer doing this, getting the 2 sentries out, get the energy on the sentries to allow for the Guardian Shield. So if the Mothership Core or Oracle does come out for Classic, it won't do as much damage because you have that Guardian Shield on your probe line.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely quite helpful, and you can also use it for defending your Nexus a bit later on, which we do see Zest is planting right now. Those 2 sentries, he didn't scout them, but he saw the 2 gateways, he saw was no tech whatsoever, so he could be concerned about that, as we do see a full wall off here for Classic at the top of his ramp. And we're going to have another little micro war here. Looks like Classic will get the better end of this one, but he still lost an Adept earlier on. And, you know, his Mothership Core is out now, and Zest going to end up losing this Adept eventually here. Nothing he can do to save it. We're going to watch this Korean style observing, like, oh, they fought, and it was really close. But the Oracle is the choice, as you predicted, and I think this is the best choice Classic could go for. But with these sentries, 3 Stalkers, and a Mothership as well as pylons in place, I don't think this is going to find much damage at all.
Yeah, if Zest plays this out as he should, and it is Zest, so I doubt he'll screw up here. He'll be able to defend from this Oracle quite easily, but it looks like the Oracle's just going to sit there, try and maybe catch the probes when they come over and transfer to that expansion, as it looks like Classic is taking his own base there at his expansion. with the pylon there at the front for the overcharges, and he's also getting the, Zest is getting observers out, so he wants to see what Classic is up to, especially since he's walled off his, Classic rather has walled off his main.
Looks like he wants to try to bait him out and then come in while these units move out. He also controls the Watchtower. The second Oracle is coming nearby, and he has, of course, the ability to one-shot probes with this, but still, all the units are in position. Even though he tried to bait him, he only gets one probe and heads directly towards the main base. There are 2 pylons in position, in fact, 3 in position to overcharge. He gets a second probe, tries to get a third, and even notice the patience on Zest's overcharge. He was waiting until like the last second, but he's double expanding.
Yeah.
GTR,
that is
wow.
that is a very greedy play here from Classic, and it looks like he just wants to bank on using these oracles to try and keep Zest in his base as long as possible before Classic can get his own third base up, get that saturated, and get that economic lead. As we see here, though, this harassment continues, but Zest is right on top of it.
Oh, he doesn't actually cancel the shade here. He's going to commit to killing a sentry. Very greedy move here, but he will get it. At the cost of... So he gets a sentry and 2 probes for an adept, or 2 adepts. I don't know if that was worth it, but again, that pressure you were talking about, he keeps his opponent back. You know, he's not out scouting. These oracles are now getting vision on both sides of the map. He doesn't even want Zest to know that he has a third base. He doesn't want him to know anything about what's coming up, what the follow-up is. Zest is actually going double Stargate, but I'm starting to wonder if this is going to be Classic, like adding a ton of gateways and doing an attack with the third base is ramping up to here.
Well, the only observer that Zest has on the map is just sitting there at the front of his ramp, and that's not really useful right now because Zest needs to know that this expansion is up from Classic. Yet, looking here at his vision on our observing piece, he hasn't even found out that it's up yet, so it's going to be, it feels like a ticking time bomb for Zest here. If he doesn't try and play catch-up or do a timing tag, Classic's just going to catch up unit-wise once he adds those gateways and roll over Zest eventually.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. And look at this, the Phoenix does not take the correct path. Still in the dark, and maybe he thinks, oh, okay, maybe the third was gonna be over here. And this may actually time out. Yeah, it looks like it's gonna time out before it can check this base.
Oh,
Unless he turns it right now.
No.
Oh, wow, that was a huge opportunity to scout that was, you know, gone to waste. And so look at this, still no vision of this base. And look, the extra gateways are coming up. He's getting +1. I think he's gonna try to do a big attack with the extra econ that he has.
Oh, that's a nice move there from Classic, actually. Using those hallucinated Phoenixes to bait those Phoenixes away from the main targets, which was those Oracles. Those Oracles are so useful from early, mid, late game. All stages of the game, you can use them like so efficiently.
Yeah. Does end up losing 1 there, but he will tag the Phoenixes as a result. Look at this. He's got +1 on the way. He's getting a Templar Archives. He's building a bit of a gas bank. He doesn't have his gases up just yet at his third, which is finally scouted.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that is working in Zest's favor so far is the superior Phoenix count. So as long as there's no real bulk of anti-air from Classic to deal with these Phoenixes, then Zest should be alright. He won't be getting steamrolled anytime soon.
I think Classic may just get charged here. He's even going to go for feedbacks. That's always a risky move, but when it pays off big. I think he may just try to do a Charge Zealot Archon attack. He's getting a Warp Prism right now. Obviously, the big issue is that this base is protected by the rocks, and he will need to work on that before he can actually get this down. But Phoenixes are obviously not able to lift Archons. Archons do a lot of splash damage, and the Charge Zealots on the ground may overwhelm with the superior economy he has. And these Phoenixes haven't gotten much done yet.
I don't think they've actually killed any probes so far. Maybe this one right here, but that's not really enough when you're actually going, what was it, 2 Stargate from Zest. Pulling these Phoenixes, you need to do a lot more damage than what Zest has done so far, but he has taken his third base, so he's finally caught up with Classic, as Classic is starting to accumulate those gateways, starting to get those Zealots, starting to get those Archons. And I think a lot of people underestimate how good Archons are against Phoenixes because of the splash damage that they do.
The splash damage, they can't be lifted. They're just a guaranteed expensive unit in the fight, whereas like an Immortal isn't necessarily because you can lift them.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing that Zest could take from this if he scouts, I mean, he's continuing to scout with this hallucinated Phoenix, is to build like a wall, a building wall. So his Immortals are more powerful. He's going to have +1. Looks like Classic is waiting for the +2 before committing to the attack. And you know what? He's adding a 4th base. He may just simply be building a composition with Charge Zealot Archon to hold on to these bases and get a faster max starting, but not actually hit to try to punish Classic's late economy.
As we see here, Zest still flying around with those Phoenixes, picks up the probe there at the 4th base, and looks like Classic's actually doing a bit of scouting himself. And we see here actually Classic's moving out, so might see a timing here.
He is going to hit that. There's no gateway wall. There's no building wall whatsoever. The only thing he has, of course, is that walled off third base with the rocks, which it looks like Classic is going to hit. This is going to be scouted. He's got several pylons. Nope, he's not going to hit it. He's changed his mind. He's going to go for the front.
Scouted though, so we'll see how much Zest can delay this, because there's no doubt with enough surface area, Classic's just going to overlap the army of Zest, and Zest has actually moved back here.
Zest just does not have the economy to support an army, to defend an army like this, and he also built a fleet beacon. So I mean, he just spent a ton of gas on that. He doesn't have his own charge, and this army is just steamrolling. Also knows the whole position here on Classic Zealots. He's not going to charge into a bad position. He's trying to fight on his terms with all of his Archons. 2 barriers coming up here very early. A lot of overcharges being placed as well. That one Archon is so low, he might even want to move it further to the back. 10 Zealots coming for Classic, as well as a Dark Shrine for easier Archon warbands.
Oh, the perfect composition here from Classic. These Immortals here from Zest can't really do anything to this army because the Zealots mainly with these Archons, and now coming in for the attack, trying to kill off Zest here. Zest down to 104 supply. Classic at 130 supply, and I think he's got this.
Look at the Archon doing so much damage to these Stalkers. There's nowhere to run. GG! And Classic, his first time back, defeats Zest. Right now, undisputedly the best Protoss in the world, with just a really greedy third Nexus, using the Oracles to control the map, to keep Zest on the defense, keep him back, not scouting, not going and checking that Nexus. And then he built a comp that countered the Phoenixes that Zest was building. It's like, you know, we called it early, we saw it, I was like, I think this is gateway timing, there's going to be Archon Charge Zealot. He made a 4th base, he had that to transition to, and he hit with a perfect storm of like a good composition versus what Zest was building. And also Zest tried to add a fleet beacon at that time. He didn't have a gateway wall, he didn't really know what was coming. I feel like if he had a wall at the top of his ramp, that attack would have been almost impossible to execute.
It felt like Zest didn't really know what was coming, because once he scouted that third base, he probably clicked on the minerals. It was like, oh man, what am I going to do to this? And then he didn't really adapt well to the composition that Classic had, and I got to give props to Classic and the coaching staff of SKT. They've crafted that game quite well.
And I mean, I gotta echo your props. Well, this is not a good start for KT. This was one of their matches where they were favored going into this best of 5. Even all 7 commentators going for the vote on Zest. It was the big favorite. And Classic, we hadn't seen him in so long, and he came in at full force. This is as big of a win for SKT as it is for a loss for KT, because this puts so much momentum in T1's favor right now as we go into TY versus Dark at TVZ.
In my opinion, this is probably the marquee match of the Telecom Awards for this round. Dark, SSL champion, as we all know, but TY has been doing quite well in the GSL.
Tearing it up.
Yeah, he's tearing it up, and I think he's pretty much the best Terran in the world.
Yeah, most people are starting to feel that way. He just has a bigger reputation. He had a better run through the GSL than Cure, who is his actual semifinal opponent, coming into, I believe, on Wednesday. That match will be happening.